All right, I think we are now live. Good morning, everyone. This is Bernard Nomberg with our weekly episode of NOMBERG LAW Live. Hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. I have got Sue Scheff from Florida on the other line. Good morning, Sue. How are you doing?
Good morning. Very well. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm glad you've got a few minutes for us today. I'm very honored that you made some time for us, and I'm really looking forward to talking to a subject that I know is very near and dear to your heart.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, for those of you who don't know Sue or haven't heard her talk, she's been on many national programs. She's going to be on future ones. This has now been almost a 20-year passion that she's had that we'll get into in a second. But one of the organizations that she founded many years ago is called P.U.R.E, Parents Universal Resources Experts. This is for at-risk children and teens. And before I butcher any more of that, Sue, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization that you founded so many years ago.
Sure. It was almost 19 years ago now. I started an organization that helps educate families when they're struggling with their at-risk teens and they've exhausted all their local resources and they're about to consider or look into residential therapy, whether it's residential treatment centers, therapeutic boarding schools, emotional growth schools. It can be very confusing when you hit the internet and you're looking for teen help. It's something that happened to me over 20 years ago with my own daughter, and I had a really, really bad experience, and we're going to get into that today, and that's what prompted me to open up my organization to help educate families. So today, I'm a parent advocate, and I help families, again, educate them on the big business of teen help out there, because it can be extremely confusing when you are at your wit's end and you're most vulnerable and you're going to trust anyone out there on the internet and you're running up against all these toll-free numbers that are promising you, that they can help you, and maybe it can be very deceptive. And I think when you hear my story, you'll understand what happened to me and why I'm so passionate about what I do today.
Well, Sue, I know that this is something not only from a personal standpoint with your own family that we'll get into in a minute, but you've become such a great advocate over these many years. And it's so easy to just jump on the internet and start typing in searches. But as we all caution our children and anybody else, the internet is a very deceiving place because you can go on any websites. They can be as slick and as well-meaning and informed, but it's because they want you to believe in whatever they're putting on the internet. And that's what's so
Right.
very hard for young children, teens, even young adults, or even us at our
Even
ages.
adults, right?
That it's just you can be sold a bill of goods and get into something that's before you know it, you're in too deep, and then you don't know how to get out of it. So
Right.
I would like you to, and I know this is very personal in nature, but to the extent that you want to share with our audience, please just share with us your story and
Sure.
where you came from and where you've gotten to.
Right. Well, it was about 20 years ago when I was having struggles with my own daughter, and she was a good kid that was just started making some bad choices, and it's very relatable to families that call me every week. She was actually a national gymnast. She was about 13, 14 years old, and she had broken her foot at the national gym after she had made nationals, and she couldn't compete anymore. So we had to end up bringing her home. And when she came home, it was a world that she didn't know anymore because she was always used to being very secluded, like in a bubble. So we put her back into, she really wanted to try public school. And I'm not blaming the public schools because this is my daughter just being exposed to things that she was never exposed to before, just being out into the general public of, I guess, mean girls. And not only mean girls, but trying to determine where she fit in. And of course, she just started choosing the wrong kids. But as I share with parents today, it was my daughter's decision to make these choices. So when parents call me up and saying, well, it's the other kids, or they're choosing the bad kids, or blaming other kids, it's our kids that are making these choices. So we went through like 5 different therapists. We did inpatient, we did outpatient. We went through some really difficult times with my daughter. We got to the point where she even went to go live with my mother at a time because I actually felt like I was hostage in my own home. It was like I was walking on eggshells. Everything I said was so explosive with her. And then she hit a real deep depression. By the 10th day that my mother had her, she called me up and she says, you know what? I don't care where you send her. I don't care how much it costs. We need to get her help. I got online and I found these programs. And this is, again, 20 years ago. These programs promised us the world. It was therapeutic. It was a horseback riding boarding school. And my daughter did love horses at the time. So I figured, this sounds really great. And I will tell you, before I did this, I had also hired an educational consultant, which is pretty big out there. And at the time, they only costed about $350 an hour. And everyone might be thinking, well, that's a lot of money. But today, if you go to hire an EC, it's what they're called, educational consultants, you get about $6,000 when you hire them. And back then, for $350 for the 1 hour, right away he said, oh, you have to send her to a wilderness program. And I was unfamiliar with wilderness programs at the time. And since then, I'm very well versed and educated, by the way, and I can explain to anyone if they're looking into them. The philosophy of a wilderness program is about breaking your child down. They put them out into the mountains with some beans and rice, and there's a therapist that visits them. And I thought, wow, my daughter is already depressed. The last thing, and she's already broken, the last thing she needs to be done is broken down some more. And P.S., these programs run about $450 to $500 a day. So this is a Band-Aid, really, and because they're 4 to 6 weeks. And I sort of knew back then it didn't take 4 to 6 weeks to get here. It's not going to take 4 to 6 weeks to turn the behavior around. So I went out on my own, and I, again, found this program that promised me the world, a therapeutic horseback riding boarding school. Well, after about 6 months, I placed my daughter on this program that I found online. They promised me the world. But she was in the program for about 6 months. I didn't see her. I didn't speak to her. And many of you are listening to this thinking, wow, how could a mother do this? Well, it was more like, I almost want to say cult-like, and this is my opinion. And they had us go into these seminars where they said, trust the program, trust the program. And I would get these horrific letters from her saying, Mom, you don't know what they're doing to us here. And when I would call, they would say, oh, you know, she lied to you at home, didn't she? Well, yeah. Well, she's manipulating you again. Don't worry, she's fine. She's out there. She's riding. She's, playing soccer, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they kept me going to these seminars. And then there was this big incident at the school where all the kids ended up in the hospital for food poisoning. And it was on the bulletin boards that they had. And they were asking me, did your daughter get admitted to the hospital? And I said, no, because wouldn't I have been called? I got a letter from my daughter, and you could tell by her writing, she was in tears. You never came to see me when I was admitted. It was that moment that I got on a plane. It was in South Carolina, and I went to pick her up, brought her home. And that's when I found out everything that went on. She was placed in a box for almost 17 hours a day. And a lot of these kids, it was just, I'm not going to go into the details, but it was horrific. I took to the computer myself, and I wrote a blog about what my daughter endured, the abuse, the neglect, what they were fed. It was absolutely horrifying. And the fraud that was perpetrated upon me, promising me the horseback riding boarding school, there was no therapy. The next thing I knew, I was served a lawsuit for defamation for this blog. And I'm like, wait a minute, but it's the truth. And as Bernard knows, truth is your defense. Fortunately for me, I had a policy on my, I guess it was on my homeowners or something, that allowed me to countersue them back and fight this lawsuit. And it was well over $1 million in legal fees. I took them to trial and proved that everything I wrote was factual. We brought in, at least 20 or 30 other kids that talked about the abuse, parents that were defrauded, and I won a huge case. I made international, national news. And we shut down 22 programs after that across the country and out of the country because they owned programs in Jamaica and Mexico, Costa Rica. And they were so upset that they turned around and they hired someone to defame me online because I started this advocacy group to educate families all about their programs. And this is before all of their programs started getting shut down because, Department of Social Services started looking into them after my case. So they hired this woman to defame me online after I created Parents Universal Resources, P.U.R.E. And she started writing, Sue Scheff is a con. I'm a crook. I abuse kids. I kidnap kids. It was horrifying. And I didn't know about this. And in 2003, I had a therapist call me up because he used to refer parents to me when they were looking for residential therapy. And he says, Sue, have you Googled yourself lately? I didn't even know back then, 2003, remember, it was the infancy of like the internet.
Right.
And I put my name in there and I almost passed out. It was all those words. So that's when the defamation case started. And I sued this woman only to find out it was WASP, which was Worldwide Association of Specialty Schools and Programs. That was the corporation of Carolina Springs Academy that abused my daughter, that hired her to do this to me. So we went to a big trial again, and I won the $11.3 million case that, I won the landmark case that puts me to where I am today, that I'm an advocate not only for parents, but for online reputation, defamation, cyberbullying, shaming. I mean, I was one of the, first victims before cyberbullying was even coined, or shaming.
Well, I thank you for sharing the much abbreviated version of your story of what you've gone through. I follow you on social, and I see from your daily and weekly posts that it's unbelievable how many almost everyday examples of cyberbullying, shaming of many levels go on in the public, not just with children and teens, but all persons. There's examples almost every day that you put up there. But
Right.
I put a link to helpyourteens.com, which I think, is that the right website?
Yes,
For the
helpyourteens.com.
organization.
Right, it has a story there too.
And so anybody who is wanting to speak further with you or to reach out for more resources, you guys can go to that website to find Sue. She also has a page on Facebook. But what I want to talk about a little bit, Sue, is, and it doesn't have to be in too deep details, because we could be here for hours, of course, is some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. I know that you try to share your expertise, your experience, your knowledge, but I want to leave, by the time we finish today, some takeaways for parents who may be watching this, who may be going through this very same thing or something very similar, and they can relate.
Right. I think what we all need to realize is, number one, online shaming and bullying isn't only about children. I mean, like you said, the headlines are also with adults. We all need to understand that we have to not only, I always hear the phrase, think before you post. I think it's more about pause, because many of us, especially as adults, can double task. So it's more about stop. Let's stop and think. Not just think, but stop before you send anything out there. Because what you put out there today can and will come back and haunt you tomorrow. Your online reputation is an extension of your online behavior, but more importantly, it's a reflection of your character. And it's going to carry over into so many parts of your future. Because I have so many people out there that say, well, I'm not going to worry about it. Because I'm not online. I don't have, I don't Facebook, I don't Instagram, I don't do anything. But the fact of the matter is, if you wake up at 50 years old and you've lost your job, right? Or you're not prepared financially to retire, the fact of the matter is you're not going to be able to get a job either, because going off grid simply isn't an answer. I actually had a friend that it happened to her. Her company went out of business. She had the same job for like 20, 30 years, and she was really good at her job. It literally took her over a year to get a job, because she was one of those people that she didn't even link in. And when you don't do that, you risk people thinking, well, what are they hiding? Do they have an alias? Maybe they're not tech savvy. So we have to remember, we have to participate in some type of social media, but it has to be used wisely. It's all about using digital wisdom. And I believe that also on the flip side of that, then we have those people out there that we have to remember, not everything we do offline needs to be shared online. And this is where, I always talk about in my lectures or whatever is oversharing. People are so, whether it's emotional sharing, you may be in conflict with your spouse or arguing with your teenagers. Your social media friends are not cyber therapists. They're just not. Take it offline. Even if you think it's private, go have a good session of wine and wine with your friends offline. You have to remember, I think it's about building up your online reputation too. You can leave comments and you can agree to disagree with people because actually that's also a reflection of your character to show that you can have a good, healthy, respectful debate with someone. I mean, we're all allowed to disagree with people respectfully, intelligently even. That shows character. So I'm not telling people, to go offline, because some people mistakenly think that that's what I mean. Oh, well, maybe we should just stay offline. Not at all. But I think one of the things we do have to recognize that this isn't always just about children. It's about adults too. It starts at the top, actually. We're not going to get political here, but what we need to do is also point these things out to our kids and have our kids understand that certain behaviors online are not acceptable. I mean, we have to use headlines as talking points, open up dialogue. When we see these sexting scandals going on in schools, use them as an opportunity. When you see sextortion happening, use these headlines as opportunities. Every parent needs to do this because this is not like the sex talk where you sit down with your son and daughter at that whatever age you're comfortable with. The tech talk is frequent. I always say short talks are better than no talks. Short talks are better than all talks when it comes to technology. On a daily basis, you should be asking your kid, just like, how much homework do you have, or is your homework done? Did you learn anything new on technology? Did you meet any new virtual friends? And how you can do that too is I encourage parents, hey, can you help me learn this new app? What new app have you learned? Can you help teach it to me? Have your child teach you something. The fact is, our kids will always be an app ahead of us. They're always going to be more cyber savvy than us. Have them teach you. That's how you can become engaged. You have to be interested in them.
It's way too often I have the younger people in our office show me how certain things are done. I'm not that old, but maybe I just can't figure out certain things.
I do too. I don't know how to use TikTok. I mean, the new craze is TikTok.
Right.
And I removed Snapchat from my phone because I'm not using Snapchat. I refuse to get involved with that.
A couple of the things that I caught from you is people need to have a filter, and they need to not put everything that's between their ears to their fingers to online.
Right.
And several times now I've spoken to local junior high and high school athletes, and I have a PowerPoint that I have that talks about the dangers of social media and your responsibilities. And part of the angle that I take is if you want to play college sports, if you want to go to college, if you want to have a job, anything that you put online is going to follow you. And sadly, there are way too many examples in my talk, and I have to update it each year because of more modern examples from the previous year, where kids just put things, and it's not just kids, not just teens, it's anybody. They put things out there, then they try to take them down, but we all know once it's out there, it can be found regardless of what you try to do to eliminate or erase it. Because once it's out there, it's out there and it follows you. And a lot of the athletes, it doesn't really sink in until I show them in the Alabama Criminal Code that certain things that they may be doing and then they put it out online, they can be charged criminally. And that's when the eyebrows get raised. And that's when they sit up and they start to ask some questions. So sadly, it's to that extent when I'm talking to some of these high school and junior high students. But it's... Right.
Well, sadly, there is no rewind online, period. Once it's sent, it's gone. And what you just said is spot on. When I give lectures, when I go out there, the best thing we can do, and this is why I said headlines, give the kids headlines, factual stories. When we just talk to them, well, this could happen, this might happen, they don't believe us. We have to give them factual headlines. And like what you said, those examples. And that's pretty much what I do. Like basically when I speak a lot about teachers. Teachers probably are the biggest ones making blunders out there, whether it's oversharing. A lot of it is just simply oversharing on social media. And they just don't know. What they assume is they're on their private Facebook page or their private Instagram. There is nothing private out there. It only takes one person to copy, lift, and share, and there goes your life. The next thing you know, you're suspended. We remember the teacher's aide that had the comments on Michelle Obama being a gorilla. The teacher's aide, another teacher that was a fashionista in Georgia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, I have it in my book. We interviewed people that constantly were making these blunders, and the next thing you know, they say, I can't believe I got fired. You got fired because you used your keypad irresponsibly. And if we're doing this, how can we expect the kids to be responsible? So again, it starts at the top, and it's not just teachers. We have police officers, we have youth pastors, we have athletes, we have school coaches, sexting minors even.
Politicians. I mean, it's every, yeah, it's every facet of society. For those of you just joining us or will be watching later, I want to welcome Chelsea, Mom, Jeremy, Stephen, and a few others who popped in and out. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me and with Sue Scheff. We're talking about cyberbullying. We're talking about we're going to get to her book, Shame Nation. Sue shared with us already her very personal story involving her daughter and an organization where she sent her for 6 months, and it was just a real horror story that she's lived through and is now educating the world, frankly, about the powers of the internet and how it can be misleading and how to deal with it. And it's already tough enough raising teenagers without the online aspect. And it's not something you or I had to deal with in our childhood, but every generation evolves, and the past generation always says, well, we had it easier back in our day. Well, frankly, the current times, there aren't children who have not been brought up without some form of technology and being online. And
Right.
I don't know and this is my question to you, Sue, in your travels and your discussions around the country, are schools doing any type of education programs when it comes to their students and online responsibilities?
Well, I wish they would make it mandatory. What we have right now is there's a course out there called Cyber Civics, and if you don't know about it, anyone listening or interested in it, it's in 43 states, and Diana's trying to get it in. Diana Graber is the creator. She wrote the curriculum. It started off in the Waldorf schools, which actually is a school that doesn't believe in any technology. And she implemented it there about 7 or 8 years ago, and it has spread like wildfire. She's been featured all over. She just published her book on it, actually called Raising Humans. Raising Humans in a Digital World. It's phenomenal. But her curriculum has really spread all over, not only nationally but internationally. But it's Cyber Civics, and she covers all through middle school, from I think through 6th to 9th grade, and it covers digital media, digital literacy, cyberbullying, recognizing cookies, understanding cookies. She covered finding that healthy screen time diet. There's nothing she doesn't cover in this curriculum. It's absolutely amazing. And I will tell you, more and more schools are adopting it, but not enough. I think it needs to become a mandatory course, like you have science, math, or any other one out there, because again, your online reputation literally determines your future. You're looking at, like you were just saying, athletes, colleges today, they will tell you they loved your GPA until they saw your tweets. How many times have we seen that? And the other, it's not only about your tweets, it's about building up your online presence. They want to see, they will go through, look at different candidates. And if they see that a candidate has built up a really great engaging presence, like they're showcasing their awards for their horses, like if they're involved in community service. Like I do speak at a local college here on online reputation, and I always encourage these kids, you know what, build up a blog, build up your Instagram page on what you're passionate about. Show those colleges that you're a leader in your community, you're a leader in your class. And this is what colleges look at too today. I mean, you can read a lot of articles out there. I know Social Assurity, Alan Katzman, he's great at inspiring young people to do this. He has a whole organization now that actually coaches. Parents will hire him as a coach for social media for teens in high school to get colleges to become attracted to them, you know what I'm saying, for social media. And this is their whole aim now, again, because it's not only about your GPA anymore. They are looking at your online presence. So it's not only about making those blunders, but it's about building up that online reputation. Online reputation is everything today. So I firmly believe that cyber education should be a priority in school. I mean, I'm not saying over, math and everything, but it should be equal, because that's where we are today.
Unfortunately, it's every single day. If we had this conversation tomorrow, I could give you another example, or you could give us 10. There was a football player for the Cleveland Browns, a guy named Dwayne Whitehead.
I tweeted it this morning.
24 hours. Yeah, he was waived in the last 24 hours because he made such threatening tweets to people who were not in his favor about some of their comments. And so there's a real world example of your online reputation can come back and get you.
The other takeaway you have to look at that is you have young people that look up to these athletes, that look up to these celebrities, that look up to the politicians as role models. And it's like, I hate to get political, but like in one of my PowerPoint presentations, I have the president's tweets out there that are not always great. And sometimes they're downright nasty. But you see over 100,000 people will retweet it. Some of them are mothers, fathers, aunts, teachers. The fact here is it's not an appropriate way to post online. So what message are we sending to our young people? We're condoning that behavior. And I'm not left or right here. I'm just saying we can't condone bullish tweets. We can't condone that type of behavior online, because these people are supposed to be role models. And on the same respect, there was the Disney producer, and I don't know if you remember this one, that put out a tweet after those young boys went up on the, I don't know, the steps of the White House or something, or the Pentagon, and the Disney producer put their head through the wood chopper. Do you remember this?
I don't.
And they had a MAGA hat on, and he said something really bad about these young teenagers because they were wearing a MAGA hat. And it was a Disney producer for Beauty and the Beast. I mean, what was he thinking? I think his name was Jack Morrissey. I have the tweet in my PowerPoint because I want to give it equal. I mean, it's not just left or right; it's both of them. These are adults, and when adults act this way, again, how can we expect the young people to act any differently? Because what happens when these adults act this way? You have the other adults condoning it. You have to understand, when we perpetrate this hate, we are condoning this hate, and this is where we as adults have to be upstanders and stop it. We can't like it, we can't forward it, we can't retweet it. As a matter of fact, we have to step back and say, Sally, Johnny, this is inappropriate. We don't condone that as parents.
But so many years ago, Charles Barkley, the Hall of Fame basketball player, famously said, "I'm not a role model, I'm just a man, a basketball player." Well, the truth of the reality is when you put yourself in that public spotlight, being an athlete or a politician or an actress or whatever you are, you do become a role model. Another example,
right.
I would say the opposite example, someone who has done a fantastic job on social media, and I'm a big sports guy, as you know now, Sue. J.J. Watt, the superstar football player for the Houston Texans. He has done so many awesome things for the city of Houston when they had the major floods a couple of years ago. The
Mhm.
long and the short of it is he took to social media and raised hundreds of millions of dollars
Wow.
because of his platform and who he was. He turned that into such an awesome experience and sharing. And one other example of an adult who we know who does awesome things on social media happens to be watching us and says hello. It's Mitch Jackson from out in Southern
I love
California.
Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch is one of the leading examples of how you do social media right. We always appreciate what he does each day and thankful for his friendship. Um, Gosh, Sue, there's so many things we could continue talking about this, but I want to make sure that before we come to the close of our conversation. Oh, and by the way, I put the cyber civics website in the comment section for anybody who wants to go read
Well,
about that.
too, if any school is interested in it, they should actually absolutely it's very reasonable. She even gives it away to like nonprofit schools and stuff. She's very reasonable.
And it's one thing that just hit me. We started talking about whether the schools should be doing this, and of course, I would love it if all schools would take this on. But of course, it starts in the home, and it
Right.
starts with the parenting and part of the way that they're raising their children. And as we get close to the end of our conversation, I know that you have much more work to do in this area. I know you're going to be taping up in New York this week, and you speak all the time. Where can people find you? Where can people reach out to your organization or send you messages of encouragement or whatever it is that they're looking for information wise?
Well, my website is suescheff.com, and it's Sue and then Scheff, Scheff, like frank.com. And the email is sue.scheff@gmail.com. Uh, that's basically, and then it's helpyourteens.com if you have, a troubled teen and you're interested in residential therapy. I don't own, I make it very clear, after going through two big major lawsuits, I make it very clear I don't own, operate, or sell schools or programs. I strictly help educate families on different types of schools and programs. I spent many years going out to visit different schools and programs, specifically in Utah, where most of them are. So I can help educate families on the ones that we have visited, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Plus, I have feedback from families for over the past 19 years. And we also help educate them on the costs because they're very expensive out there, and educating them on, how much the insurances will cover out there and what insurance don't pay out there. It's expensive. What other, and on Twitter, it's at Sue Scheff, Suescheff. And I'm not that active on Instagram. I really take a step back from social media. I don't overshare. I think a lot of people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think Mitch is the best one out there for putting stuff out there, but he puts it out there in a healthy way, in the right way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's other people out there that do it the wrong way, and as long as you're doing it the right way, there's nothing wrong with it. Mitch is very constructive. I mean, if anyone out there, they should follow Mitch because he does it constructively. And he knows how to disagree with people just constructively. And I always say, be constructive, not combative. And that is how you can build it builds character, actually. I mean, it'll show people, hey, this person has integrity, they have intelligence, and I'm interested. And they will continue following. And one thing that Mitch does really well is he engages. And you have to engage with people, no matter who they are. But you also need to know when to step away.
And
So
that's such a hard balance sometimes
it is.
because you
It
want to
is.
get in your points, but are you just fanning the flames of a fire? I
Right.
want to welcome Melissa to the show. Sue, if folks want to read your book, and I truly hope that there's those books are out there. First of all, how can you find your book, Shame Nation? And secondly, tell us just a little bit about what we'd find in there.
Well, Shame Nation is on Amazon and and Barnes and Noble, and whatever bookstores are out there. It's still out. It's in all of them. So it's Shame Nation, the global epidemic of online hate. And what I've put in there is some really great firsthand stories. We actually interviewed a lot of the people, including Kelly Keegan, which I thought was one of the best stories out there. I don't know if any of you remember. Kelly Keegan was the woman that went on the airplane and decided to start videotaping the couple that were arguing on the plane, and he broke up with her. Do you remember that story?
I do remember.
Yeah, and interestingly, I went into that thinking that, like, how could she do that? How dare her? And then she sent it out to Twitterverse. And I don't know if people remember this, but read the book. It opens with that. And I have to tell you, I actually came out of it thinking, you know what, Kelly? I get it. She did it because she could. All of us need to remember, we are now living in this world. It's an aim and shame world. We all need to start taking the time to remember wherever we are. If we're at a red light, if we're at checking out at a cash register, I think it's almost putting a reminder into us to be a little bit more empathetic towards others, and that at any time people could whip out a phone and start videotaping us, and we have no control over that. So I know I find myself being a little bit more self-aware of my behavior no matter where I'm at, because I don't know if somebody's behind me about to videotape me. So anyway, in the book, we have a lot of these firsthand stories, which is great. And then we have prescriptive in there. We have a lot of experts, including Mitch Jackson, as a matter of fact, expert advice and resources from experts around the world, which is fantastic. And we have 10 ways to survive and overcome digital shaming, online shaming. We have resources in there. It's really quite comprehensive. So I'm really proud of the book. And of course, we have that inspiring foreword from Monica Lewinsky, who I just admire so much.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about the book. I put the Amazon link to the book in the comments section for anybody who wants to check it out and purchase a copy. Sue, I could sit here and talk to you all day about these things, and your passion is certainly there. Your knowledge and expertise we all should learn from. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this has been a very informative conversation for me, and I hope that others who are watching will learn something. Maybe it'll help them along their way and along their journey with their children. Sue, I wish you safe travels and a great trip.
Thank you.
Coming up, and I would just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Certainly. And guys, sadly, this will conclude our conversation for today because I truly was enjoying talking with Sue. But as we try to each week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, even with the time change back, which I don't like, I can't do anything about it. Guys, thank you again for stopping by NOMBERG Law Live, and we will catch you another time next week. Take care.